And now it's my pleasure to introduce Lori. Lori's a former school counselor. She's an award-winning producer, speaker, and SEL curriculum developer. She's the founder and chief visionary officer of All It Takes, an organization dedicated to equipping youth and those who serve them with essential emotional intelligence skills. Lori was recently named the 2026 Counselor Advocate of the Year by the California Association of School Counselors, which is a great honor. And now, without further ado, I will hand it off to our presenter to get us started. So take it away, Lori.
Thank you, Jessica. It's really an honor to be here with you and David and the Corwin team. Thank you so much and welcome everyone. I'm having a little bit of trouble here with this PowerPoint. It doesn't seem to let me look at chat and move the slides at the same time. So I'm working on it. So I don't know if anybody else gets stressed out when things don't go quite right when you're on the spot, but here I am and here we are together. And again, I'm so happy to be here. I am Lori Woodley-Langendorff, and I'm super happy to talk to you and myself together about Flexing for Success, 6 tools for building resilience and connection in schools and communities. And it's I'm 30 years as a school counselor. It's an honor to receive the California Association of School Counselors Award this year for school counseling advocacy. And it is school counselors, if there's any school counselors in this webinar, please let me know in chat. You're my people, but anyone in the education ecosystem in any role, you are my people. Like, I've been doing this for a really long time. And what I realized as a counselor quite a long time ago was that not only did our kids need a lot of support from us as educators, whether we are a teacher, a counselor, a school nurse, a bus driver, anybody in the school ecosystem has an opportunity to make a difference for a student. And I wonder if you're all thinking that, and we think back about, what it was and what kind of a personality it was with people who really made a difference for us when we were in school, and what were some of those traits that they had. And we seem to find ourselves, and I'm going to ask you all to just use chat quite a bit here and let me be here with you. I can't see your faces, you see mine, but I'm really here present with you. And so if you communicate with me in chat, then at least I can respond to some of you in real time, because I'm feeling, I'm here with you and we're here together. And again, at the very beginning, I said time is a commodity. So thank you for using yours for this moment. So Flex for Success is something that I think of being about, and I'm trying to change the slide. There we go. Flex for Success is about what I call the 6 SEL muscles. Now, we tend to think of SEL as social emotional learning in education, and I think of it as social emotional literacy. Like, we need reading, and we need mathematics, and we need science, and we need writing. We need to be able to do those things to function in the world, a very quickly evolving world. But the other traits that we need are often just seen as what I think of like a check the box. We all know we need to find a way to ask for what we need, or we need a way to communicate our frustrations in ways that are deeply meaningful, appropriate, and someone else can hear us, right? And I think of, especially after the pandemic, I think of us as the adults maybe need the skills as much as we're teaching the kids. And sometimes that can be a little bit of an ouch, like, oh no, I know how to do this, I'm going to teach it to the kids. But when we're an expert in writing skills, or we're an expert in teaching math, maybe to students who really struggle with it, when we're good at something, it's sometimes hard to look in a mirror and go, I could be better, because we think of ourselves as the expert in the room. And by the way, we are, but even an expert has a way to grow. And in this last 5 years since the pandemic, when I made, we all pivoted, every one of you pivoted during the pandemic, and most of us haven't fully recovered. And when we had to pivot, our team at All It Takes had to pivot to something we never did. We were always in person, like probably many of you. And what were we going to do? So we made a series of films called A Trusted Space, the series. They're all free for you to access too, by the way. I'll tell you about that later. But A Trusted Space was about the skills we need to be able to help our kids along. But when I was filming, when we were making that film over the summer of 2020, and I was writing a curriculum, I'm like, wait, what do we need as the adults in the room? So I wrote the muscles, and the muscles are quit taking it personal, the power of I, ask versus tell, storytelling, curiosity, and walk the talk. Now, we're going to go through each one of them, but I want to just share this first. These muscles are not for you to give up your power. I want you to hear it. Like the muscles, and when I talk about SEL, a lot of educators are like, you know what? It's giving up the power. The kids aren't behaving. I don't even know what to do with them. I love my job. I think I love my job. I'm not sure if I love my job. I hear all of this all the time. I work with thousands of educators. And when we are uncertain about our own success in the chosen career we have, we're not at our best. And these muscles are meant for you to be able to go home and have a peaceful evening, sleep better, enjoy your job more. And it's all about us rather than what they're going to do, because what we really know we can't control, we can influence, but we can't control the kids or our colleagues when they're upset. So these muscles are for you to build powerful relationships while also maintaining your credibility, your authority, and your well-being. Now, the word authority sometimes rubs people wrong. So let me be really clear. Authority is the adult in the room whose job is to keep kids safe. It is authority of somebody who is my boss or somebody who hires me. Authority, we all have some kind of authority in our lives. Authoritarian is different. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about our ability to hold closely the people we care about, those we serve in education, and at the same time hold ourselves as valued, important humans. So let's go through the muscles. And please, I'm going to look at some questions here, see if there's any questions. I have a lot of sign-ins here. I have a favor to ask all of you, actually an invitation, not a favor, it's an invitation. It's super easy. And if we were in person, I could see you. So I'm going to just count on you doing this with me. So if you would just cross your arms, it's not a trick question. I promise you, this is not a trick question. Cross your arms or cross your legs. And if you don't like either of those, or if mobility is a thing, maybe you can cross your hands like this. Super easy. David, join us. Come on. I can see you still. Okay. Now, what I'd like to invite you to do in a moment is think about and then type in, you're going to unravel in a moment, and then you're going to type in how hard that was to do. I know this is like, wait a second, but just type into chat, just a few of you at least, let me know you're here with me. Type in how hard it was to cross your arms or cross your hands or cross your legs. Not at all, easy stuff. Totally. Okay, simple. Let me ask one more question. Did you have to think about it? Like, did you have to really think about it? No, easy, right? Okay, so now you didn't really have to think about it, not too much. All right, so now in order for us to go to the next muscles and for them to be valuable to you, I'm going to invite you to do one more thing with this. I want you to cross back, and I'm going to do it this way. Usually we do arms, but you can't see that for me. So I'm going to do my hands, and I want you to cross backwards. Whatever you did, I want you to cross the other arm or the other thumb or the other leg on top. Okay, now, what did it take to do that? A little different. Yeah, I saw the word awkward. More thought, a bit harder, had to think. Yep. Okay, slower, had to think about it. I think it took I thought about the automatic way I do, and then I could do it in the reverse way. But in that share, Michelle, we had to think, right? And so one of the things that we're always looking for our kids to do is to think, to take on an intentional desire, intentional manner to take on what you're offering them, right? Like try that math problem when they don't want to try. Like we know that if they would put some intention behind trying, there would probably be a different result. So Actually left-hander, I am too. So welcome, Melissa, to that left-hander thing. So what I like to say is when we cross backwards, the intentionality that it takes moves us from autopilot to intentional action, which gets us desired results. So as we go through the next muscles, I'm going to invite you to consider what it would be like to cross backwards when you're really pressed up against a challenge. Got it? Can everybody do that? Can we just like do a thumbs up maybe? Like, yeah, I'll try that. I'm going to think cross backwards. Okay, great. So Q-tip, muscle one, quit taking it personal. We call it Q-tip, or I call it Q-tip, which is offering benefit of the doubt. So Q-tip is the opportunity for us to take every situation, and we're going to, mostly I'm talking to educators, but I'm going to use mostly student adult interaction examples, but once in a while there might be something that's like colleague to colleague or your teenager to yourself, right? Think of these things in any place in your life where you have relationships that you care about. That's really what this is. To keep your joy, sanity, and balance, if you can, and I can, because this one's hard for me, to flex this muscle, if I can take everything that comes at me, like I hear people saying just today, well, they just did that to me. That truck just got in front of me and slowed me down. Right? When we say they did it to me, we instantly have like an elevated adrenaline rush. If it's big enough, or it hurts enough, or it feels affronting enough, then we actually kick into an auto response, which can be very defensive. How many of you can relate, even in the last today, since this morning, how many of you could just be like, oh, yeah, that person, I took it personal. We take a lot of things personal. It's just normal, but it also takes us out. And my commitment to you, my promise to you is that your life matters as much as all those people that you care about. The people you go home to, the people you teach during the day, the people that you supervise and empower as the colleagues that report to you, whoever it is that you're serving or you're in relationship with, you're caring so much that you want them to care that much about you. And so when we take things personal, it elevates this defense mechanism. Make sense? Like, how many of you ever feel defensive? And, it could be like something serious, like there's a chair flying across the classroom. Not safe, not okay, definitely not need to stop it. But if we can stay calmer in handling that chair or that student, or safety maneuvering other students out, right? Whatever it is. We talk with all kinds of teachers who are working with all sorts of different kids in circumstances. But if we say, this isn't about me, whatever's going on with that child is theirs to own. What it's mine to own is how I react to what they're doing or saying. It is not giving them permission to do or say it. That's what's good. People are like, they're doing it to me or not. They're just doing it. And then another thing that I see a lot in some writing is that there's trauma. There is a lot of trauma. Way more than any of us would ever hope for our kids. And when I do trauma training, we do a lot of deep diving into our own thing and what we went through. But for right now, let me just say this. Not everything that you're dealing with is traumatic response. Some things that we're dealing with are learned behaviors. And so, but what we do when we personalize it is we argue in our heads and then in our bad moods and our going home and treating the people we love the most the worst because we're exhausted and frustrated. We're treating the people we care about in a way that we are not proud of. Then we feel bad about it. Then we feel guilty. Then we don't sleep at night. Everything felt chaotic at home. And we get up in the morning and we do it all again. And so much of that is because we're taking things personally. And most of us in the world do know people who didn't get enough lifetime days. And this is what I just want to ask you to think about. If you could move more peacefully and not take things so personal, remember it's on them. Even if it was learned, it still wasn't taught by you. What's happening in that body over there that's saying things that are super rude or super violent. And like, again, it's not giving them permission, but it's giving us permission to not let those behaviors hurt our lifetime. Because this is our lifetime and not everybody gets enough days. How many of you did not know, how many of you know someone who did not get enough days? We all pretty much do. So let's make sure our days are one, effective in the job we do, but also happy in the life that we live. Quit taking it personal is a big one for that. Spend more time on that one than the rest of them. The power of I goes with quit taking it personal. So the minute that we say, okay, this isn't about me, I'm still mad, and there's still, words flying across the classroom, and I don't know how to handle this student, the power of I is to reframe the you did to I'm experiencing. Flipping on its head upside down, the you, because the minute I say you did this, or you're disrupting my class, or that admin doesn't have my back, the minute that we say you, one, we've taken something personal. We don't feel supported, but we're not saying I am feeling unsupported. I'm feeling completely out of my league. I'm feeling unsuccessful. I'm experiencing XYZ. And in that, and the next muscle will help us finish that sentence. But when we say, you don't take care of me, the person we're saying that to is now taking it personal. And when they fire off taking it personal, and we've said you did, we're now in, again, another power struggle. And when we're in a classroom with a teenage, let's say we have that student who disrupts class every single day. And one of the ways that we can handle and talk to that student is, one, remember, whatever's going on with them is not about me, it's about them, but I also deserve to teach. I also deserve to take care of everyone else in my classroom. I also deserve to enjoy my day. But it's also not that person's job to give that to us, but it is our job to make sure we find a way through it. So if we can say, I am experiencing great frustration because what I want to do is serve every one of you in this class, and I'm unable to meet your needs right now. Most kids, most adults are used to getting the you're doing this, you're ruining my day, and they respond with, no, I'm not, you're ruining mine. And when we get into that, just nobody wins. That's what I think. Anybody have any comments? Please lay them down in the chat. I will do what I can to comment on it. But when we talk in a classroom, like we're in this together, I think of I and we rather than you. It's your job or it's my job. Rather than that, it's our job. It's our job to set the culture of our classroom. And that means every one of us. And there's so many techniques to bring out the I'm experiencing frustration right now. And I'm wondering, instead of targeting that one child who's going to react really negatively, I'm experiencing frustration. I really want to get through this lessons. The class feels like it's just not ready to be there yet. How many others of you are feeling frustrated right now? If we can be in we and not point out the person that is the you, we can keep a much more peaceful classroom, and we will be much more successful in our teaching engagement. And some of those kids that are our hardest kids will come around and feel so much more attached to you, so much more like baby steps of building trust back.
Hey, Lori, there's a comment in here from Chloe you might want to look at. I just think it's really poignant right now.
Okay, thank you, David. Chloe, I definitely lost my cool with my students one day, and the next day I went back and apologized to them because I was frustrated about something that had nothing to do with school. Excuse me, Chloe, that is such a powerful and, in my opinion, perfectly vulnerable, mature SEL, social emotional literacy modeling ever. To go back and say, you know what, this wasn't about you, it was about me. And then to, like, anybody else have a day like that where you felt like you needed to apologize for something that you did and you just didn't even sleep well? Like, it's so fair for us to be human too. And I'm going to say that when we made the films and we interviewed students during 2020, every student we interviewed, everyone said, please tell us about your lives. And I'm going to talk more about that in storytelling in a few minutes, because there's some cautions about it too, right? We don't need to tell our kids, and we shouldn't, that our partner asked for a divorce the night before. But we can say it was a really hard night, it was a hard morning, and has anybody else ever had those moments? That's a really appropriate way to do it. Thank you, David.
Rob got something pointed in there as well about you.
Yeah, you always elicits a defensive reaction. Like if you just sit there and think of me sitting right in front of you, which I kind of am, but it's a little bit, mysterious. And I say, well, you, and you always has, I always think of it like this. It has a little throaty thing. Like it's like there's a throaty thing that's going to go into the next muscle too. And there's always a little bit of a forward momentum. It's not huge. It can be very micro, but there's a little bit of an aggressive thing when we say you. And our tone changes when we say you. And then what comes back at us is often just pure defense, or shut down, maybe, full isolation. Okay. Muscle 3 is ask versus tell. Now, this is different than what it thinks. Most people think, oh, I'm supposed to ask students to do something rather than tell them what to do. And that's actually not what this is. There's a part of that elevates what this muscle is, but it's not what comes first. What comes first is us checking ourselves, and I call this a little bit of an ouch. Are we a problem solver, or are we a misery miner? Do we mine for misery, jump into our own or others' pity parties? Now think the lunchroom. Now this could be, again, like that ouch thing. Like, do you go to the lunchroom, or have you stopped going to the lunchroom because this happens and it gets very discouraging? And you go in, it's lunchtime, you've had kind of a tough morning. Education's tough right now in so many ways. It's tough. Parents and students and staff and colleagues, and a lot of things are going on. And so people go into lunch and they eat, so they fill their bellies, and then they kind of like torture their souls because it's just a complaining, misery mining pool. And I stopped as a counselor going into the lunchroom, and this is long before I practiced this muscle, where I was like, no, I'm not going to stop going in, but I'm going to go in and choose to change the atmosphere of the lunchroom. Because you go in hungry, you leave with a full belly and an empty heart. Because all we do is spin about that kid, that parent, that admin, that policy, that government, that this, that. And that's what we leave with. And how can we leave lunch feeling so kind of oppressed by the complaining and go back and be with kids and find a way to be happy? And it's a real good check on ourselves. So think asking is problem solving and telling is complaining. Telling is, and then I just want to say too, that it is important that we all have a time when we can vent. And I think it's important. Like, we need to have a trusted persons in our life. And here's a recommendation I have. Find somebody, or the somebodies, your walking club, well, whoever it is, where you give each other 5 minutes. Like, I just need to say it all. I need to say it in any way I want. I need to be raw and real with what I'm experiencing right now. But I'm going to count on you to stop me in 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. And then say to me, because I'm going to ask you to do this, and we're going to have an agreement ahead of time. And I'm going to ask you to join me and say, okay, now what do we want to do about it? So we can have but we want to do it with somebody who we trust not to jump in and go, oh, I know, isn't that terrible? And then that person jumps in. So we got somebody's complaining, somebody else comes in and complains, somebody else comes in and complains, and somebody else comes in to complain. And we all complain about this about middle school students. It's kind of the same. A little bit of an ouch. Like, we tell middle school drama to stop. I was a middle school counselor for 22 years. I understand this. But then we do it And we don't even catch ourselves doing it. But when we're doing this, we literally are kind of ripping our heart open and saying nothing can look better. There's nothing optimistic that comes from hours of complaining about everything we don't like. So it is a piece of the muscles, like flexing the ask versus tell muscle. Identify what you need. So let's say you go in and your classes are upside down and you're exhausted and you got a call the night before. And I'm going to wrap all three things up, the first three muscles before we go to the next two. Quit taking it personal. So you have 4 kids in your morning classes that just made it almost impossible to teach. And then you didn't, or let's just actually, I'm going to go back. First period, 4 kids, one starts, the others jump in. Now they're, your whole ship is sideways, the classroom sideways. So the first thing you do is like, this is not about how you're teaching. It's not about you. You don't know. Benefit of the doubt. We don't know what's going on with them. So I am not going to take this personal. And then I'm going to ask them, here's where I'm at. I feel frustrated. And also I care deeply. I care deeply about getting through this lesson, and I care deeply about meeting your needs that obviously I'm not meeting right now. I'm not. So I'm going to ask you for this request. And this is an ask. I need to ask for 5 minutes to finish this lesson. And then what you can count on from me is for me to approach you personally, and we will figure out what it is that you need to get through the rest of this class. We will work together. Can I count on you? This is an ask. Can I count on you to give me those 5 minutes? And then you can count on me to come and approach you, to talk to you privately. Of course, not every single trick works with every single student. But most of your students, most of the teachers who I train in this, who give this a shot, find that some of the kids who are the hardest kids that they deal with completely at least are silenced, but they're not silenced because they're in trouble. They're silenced because we've just shared our caring, and it works very well. But we have to keep it in the I, and not, I can't teach because you're doing. That's one of the cautious considerations. Like, we have to be careful about how we frame an I statement and then go, well, I said I. Well, no, saying I is what we need, not like I can't teach because of you. That's really a you statement. So we want to reframe it. I'm struggling to teach this lesson. I'm feeling ineffective, and I'm also feeling responsible to everyone else. So could I ask you for 5 minutes? And then I'm going to come and talk to you. Can I count on that from you? Because you can count on this from me. And then be, good with your word. So let's
There's
see
a
what
couple
else we
comments
have
in here you might want to call out here
Yeah.
from Sheila, Melissa, and Dennis.
Yeah, Sheila, they bring out the drag you deeper. I slowed down going into teacher lounge this year. I do say somewhat connected to colleagues, but not enough for too much of the negativity. Yeah, Sheila, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's a good sanity check for ourselves, right? To stop going into the lounges. But at the same time, we can be catalysts for changing that atmosphere. Maybe you grab those few people who don't misery mind with you and, go and do something else. And then, you know what? Actually, happiness is contagious. Everything is contagious. Happiness is as contagious as negativity. So if we can just get a few people who are, like trying hard to work towards a better, more light outcome for ourselves, people will gravitate to us. They bring you up. Yep, they can bring you out or drag you deeper. Yeah, and that's only because we allow it. Like, I have a friend who taught me this, and I use it all the time. No one can steal our joy without our permission. It's an interesting thing to think about. Joy stealers we give them permission to do that. Because if we're taking it personal when we say they did that, they stole my joy. No, I allowed them to impact my joy, to influence my joy. It really helps to have established relationship prior to doing this. Yes, so sometimes some of these muscles, when they're practiced and flexed, are what help us build a relationship, especially when it's already shattered. I have my student, teachers, administrator, and interest survey and multiple intelligence survey. That's amazing. I love that, Dennis. Thank you for sharing that. When we ask for insights from others and we actually want the information, even when it's hard to hear, that's one of the best ways to get, I think, to build relationships. Thank you. Catalyst for more positivity. Love that, Sheila. Thank you. I don't know that we'll ever see you again, but I'd love to know somehow how that goes. Okay. Storytelling. So I touched on this a little while ago. Muscle 4 that we looking to flex is called storytelling. And we all tell stories, and storytelling is one of the oldest communication styles. It was in pictures on rocks, in ancient civilizations. And it is how we learn. But one thing that I noticed in my career is that a lot of adults tell stories to teach a lesson or to make a point, which really, when it's received by the other person, comes across as knowing better and really shaming or wronging the other person. So the storytelling here is about, I'm going to tell a story so I can relate to you on a feelings level rather than, tell you should stop complaining because I had it worse. So two quick things. One is all the technology today. When I grew up, I didn't have any of that technology, but you know what? Me telling my kids or the students I serve that, they don't even know what that means. And we often are like, well, you have it so good, and you have Chat GPT, or you have AI, and you have all these things, and I never did. So you should stop complaining. Well, they cannot relate to anything they don't live. They don't. They can't. And so we're basically blah, blah. They're here A, B, C, blah, 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 blah. And they've tuned our stories out, and they're not learning life lessons from us. They're hearing complaining, really an undercurrent of complaining about them for the things that we've given them. A little bit more of that, like, oh, yeah, it's kind of true. Like, we gave them the phones, we gave them this, and not all of us did. And this is generalization. So if it's not you, great. So we want to be careful that when we tell a story, it's to relate. So let's say something around connection. So our kids use technology to stay connected. When I was young, this is a very long time ago, when I was really young, connection meant going outside and being home at dark, right? And we were out in the fields and we're running around and on bikes. And but we were doing that to stay connected. Connection matters. So when we want to tell a story about our worry about technology or whatever it is, it's really important to meet them. Like, you know what? I get how important it is for you to stay connected. I remember how important that was when I was young. My concern is XYZ, and together it would be a great thing for us to figure out how we can have a little bit of what you need and a little bit what I need so that we can have a more, more peaceful household or a more peaceful classroom. I know right now a lot of schools across the nation are moving in and out of classrooms with and without phones, and there's all these new rules, and parents are like having a thing around it, and admin and teachers and students, and it's a big thing to address. And I think that when we're talking to students who are just really upset about changes, we don't have to try to justify it. We should never try to justify what we're doing that they're upset about for our own story about why they have it so good. So we want to just think about what they're dealing with underneath and meet them there with a story. Like my grandfather I used to complain about walking 2 blocks to school. Not, whatever. I was young. And my grandfather, of course, did I had to walk 5 miles backwards in the snow and all the things, right? Like, I was a Southern California girl, and my grandfather grew up in Canada. I never even saw snow till I was 7. Till I was 13. Sorry. I was in 7th grade before I even saw snow. And so for him to tell me about walking backwards, and it meant nothing. But had he just said, man, I was always envious of those kids who got rides, and I always wished my parents could have given me a ride too. I would have been able to relate to that. Like, okay, I didn't have to try, but I couldn't relate to his story at all. And then, of course, when kids can't relate to us, they tune us out. And then as adults, we take that personal Because how many of you have ever told a story and your child's like, yeah, 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 and 5 minutes later they're doing the same thing again? And we feel personal about that. For this, let's see, Melissa, and reasons they can't connect to, yep, and stories that they can't connect to the reasons that we're telling them. Hi, Jessica. Glad you let us know you're with us from New Hampshire. Okay. So again, our stories need to feel relatable, inspiring, and understanding. And from a classroom, a real quick story. I was doing a training and this teacher was just pulling her hair out. It was a morning session. I had 2 sessions in the day because this student would not write. She's a 5th grade teacher. She had a 5th grade boy who refused to write. We're like 4 months into the school year. And she took it personal. She was doing everything, jumping up and down, doing somersaults backwards, all the things that we do because we care so much, and nothing was working. And she was so angry at him. But ultimately, she was feeling unsuccessful. And we didn't do that. We didn't choose these careers to come to work every day and feel unsuccessful. And she wasn't reaching him. And it like she was in anger and tears, kind of all in her sharing in this group of us. We were doing this training. And finally, I looked at her and I said, well, what did you struggle with when you were in school? What was hard for you? And sort of stopped her. And she's like, well, I hated math. I wasn't good at it. I'm like, what were some of the reactions for you and when you were in school with math? Well, I cried every day after school with homework, with my dad, with, like I just never felt successful in math. I said, well, what if you approached him and you said, every day I get more frustrated because I'm worried. I feel worried for you because I do believe we need to write. I think it's an important skill that helps us have really good outcomes in our adulthood. And so I feel worried that you're not taking on writing, but also I'm wondering what I'm missing. And I was thinking about when I was in school and how people were pressuring me all the time to do better in math and how much I needed it. And I felt so much pressure to do math that I felt so incompetent in. I never felt successful. And frankly, I felt stupid. And I wonder if some of what I experienced around math is maybe what you experience with me in my class. Because it was 2 sessions, so that's what we talked about in the training. Later on, she goes back to class. I do an afternoon session. I'm at my car packing up at the end of the day, and she literally came out to the parking lot with tears in her eyes. And she said, this young man wrote more for me this afternoon than I've seen in 4 months. And all I had to do is tell him about my pain in learning and how unsuccessful I felt. And then he was willing to work with me and try. And she said she had tears in her eyes. So we had tears in anger, and then we had tears in like joy in the afternoon because he felt seen, he felt heard, she felt affirmed, like what she was doing mattered. He didn't not care about her. He just never felt successful. So a lot of kids will just, as we all know, will just stop trying when they don't feel successful. Okay. Muscle 5 is curiosity. I think of this as wonder is power. It's not none of these are really uncommon, but put together, they really do build a relationship. And the 5th one is curiosity. There is so much power when we wonder about another person. And instead of coming in with judgment or already knowing, and I would have to say that I think many of us adults, me too, I have to check myself and flex this muscle, already think we know what somebody else is thinking or what they're going through and how they ought to be. And when we have any of those already set notions in our brain, we have stopped the opening for any kind of curiosity. So when I think of curiosity, I think of it in 4 phrases. 1, what do you believe you know? So when you have a student or a colleague or someone who's triggering you, upsetting you, what do you believe you know about them? Well, I know that they don't sleep at night because they're on their phone all night. Or I know their parents don't care. Like, how often do we, and really look at like, I know. That really stops us right there. The minute we know, or we think we know, let me make it think, because we never know about somebody else. until they say it. Then what do we want to know? So a lot of our youth and our people who care about us, they know that we don't actually want their real story. Do you have someone in your life who asks you questions, but it's such an autopilot answer that you're like, you don't really want my answer. They just want to know everything's fine and they can go on with their day. But they don't really want to know what's really maybe going on for me. So we got to check in with ourselves. What are we really willing, or what do we really want to know? Which is different than willing to know. It's very close, but they're different. Because what are we willing to know helps us find our own courage to ask the questions, to be in curiosity, to be in relationships, and not fear the thing that could break our heart. We don't go into education because we don't care about kids. We care, and we care so deeply that sometimes we don't want to know about that kid because we don't know that we can handle the pain that they're going through. But they need us to be the adult in the room. They need us to believe in ourselves and our ability to recover from whatever they might tell us. They need us to be willing to do that. But we won't stay in pure curiosity if we already shut down because we don't want to know. So these are very powerful questions to ask ourselves about ourselves so that then we can ask them about themselves in a way that we're truly wide open for them to really share with us. And then, in different kinds of trainings and webinars, I'm like, what's possible in being curious? And you could just drop this in the chat. Students can read you. Dennis, thank you so much. How was your teacher how you as a teacher use language and what your body language says? Absolutely. We can say, of course I care. Nobody believes that. Like, children are hypocrite. I think they have built-in hypocrite radars. Now, when we were kids, we did too, but when I was a kid, I wouldn't question it. That's not the world we live in now. And that's okay. We're just in a different world. We have to live in the world we're in, not the world we want to be in. And for those of us trying to live in a different world, it's going to be a harder journey for us. And because then we are making it harder for them too. And nobody's happy and nobody's thriving. So thank you for that. Yeah, teachers who give off dealing with a difficult student give off a message in those ways. Yeah, we are a catalyst for joy, a catalyst for calm, a catalyst for ease. And if we can apply these SEL muscles on ourselves, for ourselves, we will feel so much better about our journey as an educator or a colleague or as a parent. And we will truly just, I like to use this, sleep better. We will go home and treat the people we love the most the best because we won't be as exhausted. We won't feel so defeated. We will feel powerful and we'll feel successful, even if the outcome wasn't book-worthy successful. We will feel successful in how we handled it. And just in that, we're modeling for the students that we serve. And which brings us to muscle 6, walk the talk. Walk the talk is something we all hear. Walking the talk is modeling in words, actions, and attitudes what we want from others. And what's super interesting about this is it's so intuitive, it's so common sense. It often is people's hardest muscle because they can see, I can see, maybe you can see that we want our kids to speak in kind words, but when something goes wrong for us, we spout off a bunch of bad words. But then we tell them they can't. Remember, we have no credibility. They have hypocrisy radars, and our credibility is out the door the minute we ask them to do something that we're not willing to do. Now, I'm not saying we need to be perfect, though, which is actually what we learned in all the interviews in 2020. Kids don't want us to be perfect. They just want us to be honest. And they want us to be credible. So if I spout off words that I say my students aren't allowed to use, and then I'm like, well, it's just because of this. Well, then when they excuse themselves, we don't find that tolerable. So they're like, there's no relationship built there. But if we say, oh, what just came out of my mouth is really not cool. Can I have a redo? I want to read that. Can I ask you for a redo? I'd like to approach that again a different way. So much credibility, so much like kids will just be like, wait, what? What are you saying? You're asking for a redo? And then we reframe it and we model asking to do it again. We model apologies when that's appropriate. We model a reframed retry, and it goes so far for building relationships. And then let's see, today I asked my students how they felt, and since I noticed they were tired, we talked about how they felt and have a very nice conversation. I'm an RSV teacher, and I did this with one of my groups. Making a pause and addressing what the students need is so important to me. So Patricia, thank you for sharing that. And I wish I could impart that being important to every educator, because we truly need to be able to say, this was a hard day. I'm feeling really great today, but it doesn't look like everyone in the room is. Let's do a quick check-in. Even in secondary, where we see 50, somewhere between 30 and 50 kids every hour for 6 hours, we can just do a quick check-in. And it goes so far with our kids. It really does. So many restorative practice or justice principles here. Thank you. It is amazing what they notice. They notice it all. And I don't know about you, if you ever are at home and you have kids and you're like, oh, they're not listening. They're listening to everything they're listening to. So almost last slide. This is my credibility slide. So we do a lot of training where we take kids out into the field and we do ropes courses. It's what I've done for 30 years. Got really lucky my first year as a middle school counselor, and then just took it on and have done it ever since. This is me. This is in Malibu. And one day I take kids, and there was a student who was just like, I'm petrified to do this. And I'm like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And for 2 days over the weekend, I'd be telling kids they'd be fine. And for 20 years, I've been telling kids, you'll be fine. And they were, and they are. And the other side of this is such a big efficacy agency build to do this work, this rope stuff. But I recalled that I hadn't climbed in a long time, and it terrifies me to climb. And I'm sitting there and I was feeling a little remorse for asking kids and reassuring them when I hadn't actually done the practice myself in quite a few years. So I climbed and I did what I'd been asking them to do. And then I got lucky and somebody captured this very fun cell phone picture. But I think that credibility comes with a willingness to do, to share, and to model what we're asking of others, including our young people. The world we're in right now, if we tell them we get to it and they don't, and we don't have a credible reason, and we don't model it, we are losing them. And I don't think with their access to social media, their access to seeing, we can say this is not true, but they can see with their little things that it is true. And we need to be the beacons for them, the beacons of honesty, the beacons of vulnerability, the beacons of credibility. And I do think that credibility needs to be earned. It's not just given. So that's part of my thoughts there. Certainly focus on walking the talk. I do. I try really hard to, and not always do I get there, but I'm good at do-overs also. I'm pretty good at being like, ouch, that didn't come out very well. I'd like to try that again. Would you give me a chance to do that again? If you're interested in diving deeper, this is a book club that we do. We're going through each chapter of the book over 6 weeks, starts tomorrow. It's no cost, and would just, love to see you. And I appreciate all of your time here. And I'm happy, David, to answer any questions or take any comments.
Lori, do you mind if I ask a question?
Of course not.
Would you go on that swing again?
I would. Fortunately, that actual ropes course burned down in the Malibu fires in 2018, but
No.
I would do it again, and I would be as terrified as I was then.
All right. right. So we're going to open it up to questions,
Yeah.
probably in the chat. So if you have any questions or comments, just put them in there. While people are putting their questions in the chat, Lori, we just want to thank you so much for this evening. It was really fun to kind of strengthen our muscles, right? And to really work on those 6 different muscle groups you talked about, all of them so very important. Just a reminder to you all that you are going to be receiving a certificate of attendance this evening. You'll be getting that via Gutenberg certs. So that's going to be coming to your email that you registered for the event in. You'll also be receiving a link to the recording from us at Corwin. So keep an eye out for that. Lori, are you looking at the chat to see if there's any questions out there?
I am. I see some, Orlin, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, feeling inspired, so glad I came. That's what I hope. I just hope that these muscles, just like our physical muscles, we know they atrophy if we don't practice them, and we feel better if we do practice them. So if, you can leave with a little lighter step and a little easier heart, then I'm glad for all of us for that. So thank you. I don't think I see any questions.
I'm just looking through the chat again, Lori. I'm not seeing any additional questions, but if you have questions after we finish up today and you feel like you want answers, you can use that info@corwin.com and we'll answer those questions for you. So Lori, thanks again to you and thanks to everyone for their participation tonight. And I hope everyone has a great week. So Lori, great job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, David. And thank you everybody for signing in.